What a great song. Thank you, Jerry, for finding that, selecting that, putting that in. Thank you, Lauren, for expressing it so amazingly. Think about God inviting us to that very thing, that we are already His beloved children and yet becoming fully examples of that, what it means for us to become more whole, make us to become more one, us to become more healed, to be able to really live out the belovedness that is already there, as Virginia was sharing, like that doesn't go away depending upon where we are or what our day was, how we've been acting. What an amazing invitation that we get to take God up on. Let's pray and keep learning what it is, this becoming. God, I ask you to help us now to be able to look, to listen, to somehow tie those pieces together, somehow trust, so that we could become more whole. We could become more one. We could be restored in all the ways that we get broken and separated and fearful. And let your gracious love lead us. Let it change the way we look and listen to everything. Let it turn us into not only those who are healed, but those who help others heal. In Jesus' name, amen. Last Sunday, we were in chapter 13 of Matthew's Gospel, and there is a parable that we're going to look at, and there is kind of the parable is set up, and then there's this middle part where the disciples have a question: why are you using parables? Their question isn't even about the parable itself initially. It's like, why are you even using parables, Jesus? And then there's, after it, there's the second half where Jesus explains it a little bit more. And we're going to look at that first and third part. But just to secure that middle part of the reason why we're looking at this is because in that middle part, Jesus expresses that it's not about who's smartest and it's not about who's holiest. It's just about those who are willing. That if you are willing to have eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart that's open, that the mysteries of what it is to live this different kind of kingdom, to see the world through grace, not grades, to see it with the eyes of God, to see ourselves and each other and God through those eyes, and therefore be healed. That the point, Jesus says, of teaching in parables is part of the overall healing ministry, of going to somebody who can't see or can't walk and touching them and in their perceived uncleanness and healing them, of going to someone who needs to be delivered from what seems to be evil spirits controlling them in some way that is beyond what they can be disciplined through, of what it means for those who have made choices in their life, and by choice of career, choice of association, choice of action, to somehow all these people who are seemingly unclean and in need of healing, that it's really all of us. And that even the way Jesus is going to teach is a teaching for the purpose of healing. But the question really is, do we look and listen to parables or anything else? Have we learned to read the Bible as a means of healing, not as a means of fear, not as a means of grades, not as a means of achievement? All the ways that we are promoted to do well in school, do well in sports, do well in our activities, all the kinds of ways that we think we're better, worth more when we accomplish more. All the fears of rejection, of not amounting to much, of not having, all that anxiety and all that shame, I'm not safe and I'm not enough, oftentimes are the actual lenses by which we see everything, and we're going to see that clearly. For me personally, just as a word of testimony personally, this parable, when I first learned it, I learned it either because it was taught specifically to emphasize these things, or because the way it was taught, it's what I got from it. And we're going to see how that probably is a temptation for all of us, to look through a particular lens. It was even the case that was so enthralled to me that when I began pastoring, like this is one of those passages that I picked and said, I need to have that like on ready at any time because it touches so much of it. But I was coming from a place that I'm not sure is the healthiest now. You can see all kinds of things in parables, but the emphasis that I want us to see is a change in what it would be to read this parable in the way that we typically have, in fear and achievement and grades, versus what it might mean in grace and healing. So let's look at the parable that I'm talking about. In chapter 13, beginning in verse 1, I'm going to read the first 9 verses as Jesus starts to set up this parable. It says, "In the same day Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Such a large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat in it, while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables." And in Matthew's gospel, the next couple of chapters, we have parable after parable. But here's this one, saying, "A farmer went out to sow seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places, where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears, let him hear." But what are we supposed to hear? At least at this point, we have a farmer spreading some seed. We have some ground, soil, dirt of different kinds. And we see that there are 4 kinds listed. There's a path that's kind of hard, and then there's a place where it's kind of shallow. Then there's another place that has thorns that grow up. And finally, there's something called good soil, and it ends up producing something. What are we supposed to hear? Let's skip ahead then to verse 18, where we've gone past the question, why speak in parables? And now, what about this parable? What are we supposed to get from this, Jesus? What are we supposed to hear, listen for? It says, beginning in verse 18, "Listen then to what the parable of the sower means. When anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in their heart. This is the seed sown along the path. The seed falling on rocky ground refers to someone who hears the word and at once receives it with joy. But since they have no root, they last only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. The seed falling among the thorns refers to someone who hears the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. But the seed falling on good soil refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. This is the one who produces a crop yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what is sown." And so Jesus clarifies that we're not just talking about picturing a farmer, we're talking about the soils or dirt, the different kinds of ground, are different kinds of people. And it's a different kind of response. And the way we've typically learned this, the way we're kind of prone to hear it even if the person isn't necessarily trying to teach it in this direction, is to listen to this and to focus on the soils. As a matter of fact, many of us would have had a sermon, or maybe even in our own Bibles, depending upon, it might be referred to as the parable of the soils. Why? Because it's about people, and we're worried about it. So I guess the challenge is for us to be the best soil. As a matter of fact, 20 years ago when I, put together Jay's going to be the gung-ho guy getting into ministry and I need to do that first sermon, that sermon that I wrote about this, I called it Be Good Dirt. Thank you. I worked hard on that. And I had all kinds of illustrations and I had all kinds of things, and we could take a good hour, and I could do that, to take a good hour to unwrap, giving it all the visuals. But what happens when we do that? When our focus is on being good dirt, then what do we first do? We go like, well, there's 4 kinds of dirt. We begin our math and our grades. There are 4 kinds of dirt. Way 1, 2, and 3 are all failures. There's only one kind that's any good. So what do? Do we divide it in 25%? So like 25% are going to be hard, and 25% are going to be rocky, and 25% are going to get choked out by the thorns, and 25% will be pretty good. They're the only ones that matter. Here's the application. Jay is preaching, and only 25% of you are going to walk out of here and do anything with it because 75% of you stink. Why do you stink as dirt? Why aren't you better? Why don't you try harder? We come away with more anxiety. Some of us know we've done leadership stuff like, why are we even believing just because there are 4 of them that they're all equal? There are lots of people who say, in an organization, really 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Maybe more, 10% of the people do 90% of the work. Maybe those who get an A in this class is much smaller than 25%. Oh no, what do I have to do? Sometimes I kind of feel hard, not so soft. Something must be wrong with me. Sometimes stuff, man, while we're here, it's just really hitting, and by the time I've had lunch, I don't even remember what the dude said. What's wrong with me? Sometimes it works until it doesn't, and then something bad comes, and I worry more than I think about what to do. What's wrong with me? Is God disappointed with me? Is God mad at me? Am I just a big failure? I'm just a big failure at this whole church thing, at this whole Christianity thing. I just can't learn it at all. Something's wrong with me, and it's probably down deep, and it's probably from my family, and it's probably God doesn't like it. And is God going to even share any seed with me ever again? And none of that is healing. Man, it sounded good to my ears as an achiever. It sounded good to my ears as I'm going to be a better student than you, and I'm going to be a better athlete than you, and I'm going to make something of my life with you. That all sounded good. It's like, what's y'all's problem? Let's just work harder. Try harder. God deserves our best effort. But when we dwell in all of that, little of that becomes healing. If God's telling this story in order to heal us, most of us, it actually just makes us more anxious. It makes us more shameful. It makes us less motivated because we're just sure most of the time. Maybe this isn't about different kinds of people. Maybe this is about you and me at different times. So maybe 25% of the time I'm not really there, and 25% of the time I'm sort of there, and 25% of the time it'll grow for a little bit, and 25% of the time, but what's that going to be today? Is today one of those? I don't know. What would it be if I looked at this from a standpoint of healing? How might Jesus be teaching something that would be healing to me? And one of the clues that's fabulous, because it's just kind of like hits you in the face, even if you didn't realize it could hit you in the face, is the way I was typically taught, the way I had typically seen, the way we're just prone as human beings who just do this. Like, it's not about anybody being bad and wrong. It's just the way we are prone to be. You take this lesson and you turn it into the parable of the soils. But here in verse 18, Jesus says, listen then to what the parable of the sower means. What does this teach me about the sower? Instead of focusing on the soils, which may be true, what does it teach me about the sower? And if I look closely, it seems to say that it doesn't matter how people, it doesn't matter how you and I, it doesn't matter how any individual responds in these 4 categories. Oh, these 4 categories exist. These 4 ways actually happen. This is what really happens. But you know what it seems to be saying is no matter how that happens, God's got a big bucket of seed and he just keeps spreading it. Doesn't even matter, doesn't quit, doesn't change. You're a hard path, I'm flinging seed. You're a rocky path? Cool. You're thorny? You're going to do something with it? That God somehow is graciously wasteful, reckless, just giving seed away without ever changing, because he doesn't give a limited amount of seed to only the right people. God gives fully of himself at all times to all people, to the anyones. That the parable is because anyone can learn from it, and that the love that God gives is for anyone at any time, because this is not a parable of scarcity. There's only a little seed and only the good people get it. Otherwise, God gets mad at you and it just dries up. The idea is it's abundance. That there is more than enough seed, and that God Appleseed just keeps throwing it crazily. And that what is he throwing that's the seed? Like, look again more closely. It says, verse 18, 19, when anyone hears the message, that word there, the message of the kingdom. As we keep reading down, it's translated in our English, word. As you hear the word, the word, the word. The seed is the word. Now see, here's again, careful. That word, the word, in the Greek is the word logos. It doesn't mean the Bible. It's not, if you read the Bible good, then you'll be good. It's not even the idea or message, although that's part of the teaching. If we look closely in the Gospels, we move to John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and the Logos was God, is God, was there in the beginning. Verse 14, and the Logos became flesh and walked among us. The seed is God's very self. It's the expression of God. It's all of God. It's all of God's love. It's all of God's wisdom. It's all of God's grace. It's all of God's healing. It's all of God's presence. The God is the sower sowing the seed. He's not just sowing ideas that you might think. He's not just sowing words that you might read. He's sowing the very expression of himself that we later say, well, that's Jesus. Jesus in flesh was God. This is what God looks like in a flesh suit. And so it's not just that the sower spreads seed and he's got a lot of seed so that God is somehow just the God of ideas. But God is forever graciously, regardless of us, because this is who God is, spreading himself. His love, his acceptance, his forgiveness, his healing. It's at all times. It's for all people. It's always. And what are we supposed to do with it? We're supposed to find some way to understand. It says, when anyone, verse 19, anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches it away, what was sown in their heart. Now there's several little things in that sentence. Look at it. It says, when the evil one, but here's the thing, we found this before in our English translations. This is an interpreter putting a word in there. It doesn't say one. In the original text, it doesn't say one. This isn't about the devil. This is about the evil. And what is the word being expressed there as evil? Is anything that separates, divides, or tears. And that's exactly what we're seeing in the picture. Like, maybe it's just my hard-heartedness. Maybe it's my worry and pain. Maybe it's my giving in to the false promises of power and wealth. There's all kinds of things that can get in the way, and they're things that tear, not things that heal. They're things that hurt instead of help. And so the challenge is that whenever God is sharing himself, we're tempted to have that torn apart, when exactly what understanding is not about getting smarter about it. It's not about checking the box or having it in your mind. It's about knitting yourself to it, becoming one with it. So the parable is saying there's God who's sharing God's self and all of God's self, and for those who will take it and knit themselves and make themselves one with it, not let it be torn from them as if it was stripped of its attachment. For those who do that, there's going to be something in you that's going to produce something outside of you. And these are the things that get in the way. That sometimes I'm just not soft. I'm hard. And I kind of just push back. I'm distracted. And I'm just not clued in. Sometimes I hear it and I receive it with joy, but it doesn't really take root. So any kind of trouble or any kind of pain tears it away. See, trouble and persecution, those are the evil. It says also that the thorns that could pull up are worries about this life and deceitfulness of wealth that choke it away. That's the evil. There is the evil. All the evils. So that we're not just playing some game of, oh, well, how am I supposed to compete with some devil and there's some devil chasing me down? The idea is that there are just factors in life, conditions in life, engineered however they are engineered, that want to make me not one with God's love, not whole and complete and restored, not the feeling of forgiveness, which is healing the unloved, and instead tear it away. And where does this happen? Go back to verse 19. It snatches away what was sown in their heart. Now, heart being the center of us, the center of who we are, the center of all places. It's not just your head. So this is not a parable that would be wisely taken and just focus on. Once upon a time, there was a sower of God ideas. And for those of you who in your head memorize them and get them straight and can tell them to other people, then you're cool and all the rest of you get an F. And that's about 75% of you. So have a nice day. But instead, who is the sower? The sower isn't worried about grades, is worried about graciously spreading God's self with the idea that our role is to grab on and hold on to in a world where it's really tempting to have things pull us away. And if we do, it will produce something in us that will spill out of us. But that today we could have confidence to try again. Why? Because no matter how many days in a row we've been hard soil, no matter how many days in a row we've let worry get in the way, or fear get in the way, or persecution get in the way, no matter how much it's not been working out, today, God is still spreading all the seed. God's still doing his part 100%. God's still like showering it down. It's a beautiful day picture today. Like, it doesn't matter what you did today, it's raining today because God is raining his seed. And you don't get to get out of it. And even if you've tried to dress to stay out of it, and even if you've stayed out of the indoors so you can avoid it, and even if when you got it, you wiped it off as fast as you possibly could because you wanted to be dry, doesn't matter. God is still saturating you with himself. If you'll just walk outside, you can be drenched. Do you want to? Because he's not upset with you that you did it wrong yesterday. He's smiling, giving you the opportunity. But what about today? What about now? Want to be a little more loved now? Want to be a little more wise now? It's not that these things don't make any difference. Absolutely, during this Lenten season we have ahead, think about, where is it that I might need to soften up my heart? Be open to some things that I haven't been open to. Absolutely. Where is it that I've been just kind of shallow? And when I'm paying attention, it makes sense, but it doesn't really make its way into my life. Sure, find those things out. Where is it that worry, or where is it the false promise? Like, if I just make enough money, if I just get enough power, if I just have enough acceptance, if I just have a group of friends, if I just find that person for a lifetime, if I just have a child, if I just have a couple, if we just do this thing, if we just get rid of those people, if we just do this thing, where is that promise that somehow control will come and then I'll be safe? If that's the thing, we can look and go, okay, I can grow in those areas, but why would I bother? Not because I'm fearful God's going to give up on me. Not because I'm in competition and comparison with everybody else. Not even because I'm in comparison or competition with myself, that I used to be more like this, but I really want to be soil 4. But that there is this potential. There is this God who just never gives up, who is a flowing fountain, who just drenches me with himself. Let me just figure out how to go outside and strip off the layers that get in the way and be drenched today because the fountain is flowing today, so why not? And for some of us, we go, oh, yeah, but that means people will just, put it off, and they'll get to the future before they do it. They won't care now. If God just gives it to them all the time, then nobody will appreciate it. Not if they're actually living life, because it stinks to live in fear. It stinks to have all the false promises not come true. It stinks. It is hurtful to live in worry, to live in trouble. There's enough of it out there. If somebody's being honest with their life, the whole idea that God is promising his very self and his love and his forgiveness and his connection, and I would just turn it down, well, that person's still at a very hard path, and it just needs to be broken up a little bit. But why would they bother? Not because, well, if you try real hard, God will give you another chance, but because God doesn't care if you try. He's just given chances because he is love at all times. No grades, just grace. And that's what makes it so crazy. That's what makes it a mystery. That's what makes it so hard for people to see it and hear it and conclude that I want to tie myself to it and that it would heal me, because it just doesn't go with the way all of the rest of life happens. It's just not how mama and daddy raised me. It's just not how the world works in my job. It's just not how people treat each other. And that's where we get to that point of hopelessness. We get to that point of maybe Jesus is inviting the any of us, the any one of us, that this is what could be. Now, ultimately, that's the beautiful picture we have when somebody walks through the waters of baptism. That I would be saturated one more time with water to show you how God saturates every single day. And how that water not only soaks me, but when I come up, it kind of flows with me, and I have something to offer. Not to get me worried about all the times that I needed to be unclean, but that God sees me and wants me to know how he beloves me and willing to touch me and become one with me, that I would realize that he's already made me clean if I would just agree with him and what he is doing and has already done. We don't have it for the screen, but I want to just come back to the end of verse 15 that was in that middle section from last week. It says, otherwise, they might see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their hearts and turn, and I would heal them. What would it be for us to read this way, to see this way, to think this way? Oh God, if you would help us hear with our ears and open our eyes and understand, tie our hearts to your heart so that we might change the way we approach life and become more whole and one. God, will you please help us? However we need to respond to this today, the invitation is open. You have a hose spraying all over. Let us run and get under it and believe that today we do it because that's where you are and that's what you're doing. That this isn't about our soils as much as about you, the sower. And as a result, that it would change us and our soils. Whatever has us stuck in any of those categories, will you help us receive your love and encouragement, your strength and direction, that we could not see those as our identity, but let go of them? That today we just get under that fountain and get soaking wet with your love, and it would change for today. And that the more that we do it, the more it would change the attraction of any of those other options. That would not only be healing, that would be life and life more abundantly. That's what you've invited us to. Help us to receive it. In Jesus' name, amen.
I invite you to take your hymnals and turn to hymn number 475. 445, Only Trust Him. Let's stand and sing together.